What is going on, everybody? Another conversation with Jason Destiny. Today we are joined by Carl Wayne Bishop himself, Sean Whalen. Sean, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, but I have never been introduced as Carl Wayne Bishop. You're showing your hands. You're showing your hands. I did not know you're that's one of a little trivia there. My wife says I look the handsomest in that movie because of my kind of rugged good looks.
That was one of my favorite comedies when it came out. I saw it like 6 times in the theater when it came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a good story about that, which was after the milk commercial, everybody wanted me to do face stuff, right? A lot of funny face acting and things like that. So I know that's why I got jury duty. And so then I thought, well, if that's the thing, I'm going to lean into it, be the mystique. And I said, that's great, as long as I'm quiet the whole movie. Well, they loved what I was doing at the studio. And they said, we want to add another scene with you. And at that point in my career, I was like, of course, we said yes. They did the deal. And then they sent the scene, and it was the conjugal visit scene. And I was so depressed. I hated shooting it. I hated doing it because it ruined everything that I wanted to do with the character. It just made him normal and stupid, and it just really depressed me. And come to find out, as people love that scene more than any other scene in the movie. And it literally, like, it's kind of people like, how was it? It kind of soul crushed me. And I went, all right, it's just another gig. And I was sad about it. And everybody loves that scene. So what do I know? You know what I mean?
Funny how that works sometimes.
Isn't that wild? Like I kind of go, I can't blame anybody, but I mean, isn't that one of your favorite scenes in the movie?
It is, actually. Yes.
But see, my point was I wanted to be silent and mysterious the whole time. So you never really knew. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That I wanted to keep it gray the whole time. But again, that's showing that I don't really know what I'm doing. Because that's literally people's favorite scene. Same thing in Employee of the Month. Like, my guy farts are allowed, and people go, oh my God, would you fart? And it's like, my guy would never fart like that. The way they set up my character, he would never do that. And so but I wasn't at that point in my career. Now, if I was now in my career, I go, no, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? I'd say that doesn't work for the character I had. It's kind of like when I did Never Been Kissed with Drew Barrymore. There was a scene that my guy had a booger, but they said, whatever thing you want as your character, you can do. And so I thought, I want to do the Wall Street kind of badass guy with the spiked hair and and when Drew said, well, we don't want to shoot the scene with the booger, right? And the director goes, well, we need to. And she goes, no, you don't. Sean did this work. This guy would never have it didn't work for the character. So she defended that, and we never shot that because she said, if we put that in the footage, then the studio might see it and like it and ruin all Sean's hard work. So
I love that.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. So it is very funny, like what you do, how you feel about it, and then when you put it out there, you don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But yeah, people love that scene in Jury Duty. I get deep fry your ass people say it to me all the time, and I'm like, oh.
What made you want to be an actor?
I think I was the youngest of 4. And I didn't want to do chores, so I'd entertain my siblings. And I was small, but I had a lot of energy and confidence. And I think the main thing was I just loved to make people laugh. I think that was the main thing. And then in 5th grade, I directed and starred in a version of Rumpelstiltskin I saw my 5th grade crush in Paris. She lives there with her husband, and she was like, "Why did you put me in that play? I'm not an actor." And I was like, now I realize I cast my crush as the lead in 5th grade. And she's like, "I wasn't that good." And I was like, I guess guilty as charged. But when I came out to do the curtain call, I'll never forget, like, sliding out there with my little Rumpelstiltskin socks and hearing the whole school go nuts, and me going, "Wow, I like doing this, and they like watching me do this." So that was the first real seed. And then, I was definitely doing skits and performances in junior high school. And then in high school, I really kicked in and did a lot of stuff. And it was, it's like I found my home, I knew this is what I wanted to do. I loved doing it. I wanted to get good at it, and I think, and then, so in high school really kind of solidified my position, because I directed I directed something, I acted in something, I did community theater, I did comedy, I did drama, I did it all. And I thought, oh, this is, kind of what I want to do. So I got into UCLA and got into the theater arts program, which not a lot of people did. And I didn't even know how selective it was, but it didn't really strike me as well as I did. I got into a play really early with Daphne Zuniga from Spaceballs and Melrose Place. And I got a lot of heat in the good way, but it was too much for me. I was 18. I just came from Maryland, and it was very overwhelming. I also auditioned for Eric Stoltz's part in Mask, not The Mask, but Mask. But it was so overwhelming, and I was freaked out. So I took a few years off, and then I got into Groundlings when I was, probably settled in my own skin more. And then in Groundlings, I loved it. I mean, it was everything I wanted: writing, comedy, the whole thing. And then I had to learn how to do more serious acting because I couldn't do auditions. So I got a real theater at Playhouse West, and then I got an acting coach, and that and it's amazing because my number one thing is comedy, hands down, but I've probably done more drama and horror than I have comedy, probably. So I'm glad I learned how to do drama.
Speaking of horror, like, your first movie role was People Under the Stairs with Wes Craven. That's pretty miraculous. And that's another one that I loved growing up. And I saw something online about how you didn't realize like how popular that movie was until like internet culture came around.
Yeah.
What was that experience like working with Wes, who was a legend at the time?
It was, but here's the thing, like, I wasn't, that was the reason I think I was successful in my early days, is because I didn't know anything. I was just having fun. And because I was having fun and not looking for results, not looking for, making it or anything, I was just having fun. I didn't know. I mean, I knew who Freddy Krueger was for sure, right? But it was just a movie. It wasn't like, oh my God, Wes Craven. And remember, Wes Craven wasn't that Wes Craven then. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He had just done Freddy. You know what I mean? Well, that's not true. He did Freddy, Hills Have Eyes, and stuff like that. So he was definitely big in the genre, but I didn't know that I wasn't deep into the horror production side of it at that point. I loved horror as a kid with my monsters and stuff like that. So I had gotten an audition, and then I thought I'd played Renfield in high school, and that helped me inform who Roach was. Renfield is in Dracula, and it's kind of the same kind of vibe. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place kind of thing. And my coach helped me get the depth, and I went in there and I crawled around Wes Craven's floor. All my graduate student, all my friends who had, gotten their masters in business, they're like, oh, I have to sit in these interviews with suits and my resume and this and that. And I go, well, I was crawling shirtless around Wes Craven's carpet, crying, hiding behind his chairs. That's my interview. And I got it pretty quickly. Like I got it as soon as I got home. Within the hour, they called and said, "You're the guy." And it was perfect because I was in my Playhouse West phase. I was learning acting, and he really liked actors and he really liked them to explore. And I don't remember him giving me a ton of notes. But I remember going to him with my death scene and going, "Look, I really want to be sad, but then be obviously, encouraging when to get Fool to continue without me." And I said, "Okay, so I'm going to start to prepare." And he goes, "I love that idea." So I don't know if you recall, my big scene was in a furnace, and so I was sitting by the set and I went around the corner and I started to prepare, and, I'm sitting there crying and messed up, and the makeup people, because they were used to seeing me cheery and, fun Sean on the set. Right. And then they came over and, we're like, "Is he okay?" And Wes blocked everybody and goes, "He's working. Give him his space to work." So he was just chill, mellow. It's very funny. I always think of him and Rob Zombie as the same. Rob looks like he could be into horror with the way he looks. Wes looks like, that uncle who teaches you how to do origami quietly in the corner while everybody what I mean? He was so mellow, but they're very similar. They're very chill on set. They run a very casual set, which was great. And he had a great sense of humor. One time I was, doing a scene, and it was after the shotgun scene, and he goes, come here, look at this. And you hear me going, "Oh shit." And he goes, "You can't talk." So they gave me, I asked for the tongue that I used for the one shot, and I kept it in the entire movie so that I could just be free and talk, but you can't understand what I'm saying. So I just kept that thing in the whole movie so I could never be clearly understood. And he just wanted the acting to be good. And which is crazy because in horror movies, that was never usually, it's obviously the scares and the gore and the tension and the this and the that. But he really wanted, and, I can say this, it's a very strange movie. It's really, really weird, but I think the acting is pretty strong across the board. I mean, we had Ving Rhames and, so it was great. It was just, you would never think that a guy like him would be that into the acting of it, which was great.
Awesome. So, Destiny, I'll let you get a question, and I promise. But I have to ask because I was, 10 when this movie came out, but you took over the role of Wormser in Revenge of the Nerds 3.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
That was literally like, my agent goes, "Hey, can you shoot this thing?" Or I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, she said, "They can't find this Wormser guy, and you can pull it off." And I go, "All right." That was it. Like they just called me in there, and I knew Greg Binkley, who plays, the younger generation nerds. They couldn't find, Anthony Edwards, they couldn't find. So they just had literally a guy on set who was like a production guy. They just greased his hair back. I don't know if you remember seeing him, the guy who was playing Anthony. He didn't look anything like it. Like no, they literally, it's terrible. Like, but they, I mean, it was just like half a day in and out, Yeah. Ted McGinley was lovely beyond belief. Like, everybody was great. Everyone was really nice. First time I got to meet Curtis, and it was great, but it was just a phone call.
Yeah.
Fill in.
So I'm going to ask about Twister. How did that come into your life? Do you remember like your audition or your first reaction to the script?
The bottom line was, I was doing a lot of commercials, and the milk commercial came up. The Aaron Burr Got Milk commercial came up. and I thought someone else was going to get it. So I went in there and had a blast, messed around. And that's how I booked the milk commercial. The milk commercial, Aaron Burr, I don't know if you know what that is, but it was a very big commercial, the Got Milk commercial. And I was in acting class, and a girl goes, "Oh, your life's going to change." And I said, "Why?" She goes, "I work at Amblin Entertainment." And I said, "Okay." And she goes, "That's Steven Spielberg's company." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "He loves that commercial." At that time, he was using young independent artists to remember, like, he saw Swingers, and then Vince Vaughn was in Jurassic Park, and you know what I mean? He was using unknown faces. And I thought, oh, okay. So then Twister came up like a year or so later, that audition. And when I went in, we didn't have any real lines. We had the audition piece of like Dusty, and so we were saying the extreme and all that kind of stuff. And then the most of it was us just, and Eddie, the guy in the bad guy team or whatever. But most of it was like, look over there, look out, we got to turn, help, it's a big one, like it was not a lot of, so there's no real audition, you know what I mean? You're kind of sitting there, and the woman was like, he's very hot right now. He's in the Batman movie. And it was the third movie that was out right then, but I was in the second one years ago. And I was like, no, I'm not. And they're like, what? And I go, nothing. I'm not going to tell them that. Yeah, the new one. Sure. Whatever.
I'll go with that.
and Yonda Bonta sat there, and then I got the role, and I go, oh, this is what she meant. This is what she meant. Spielberg, because there was no, I mean, it's not like you go, wow, he nailed that yelling and looking in the sky, So I kind of knew what it was to have heat in the 90s, because after Twister was seen as like, oh, all the young actors in LA or, in New York and LA are in Twister, So that brought us heat, So I worked pretty well after, because Twister was such a big movie, and I worked pretty steadily for the rest of the 90s because of that movie. The audition was kind of like, it was basically, you could tell that Spielberg goes, I want this kid in the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was kind of a non-audition. It was very strange. But I just remember
so interesting.
Shutting up and going, whatever she says is fine.
Batman, right.
Yeah, whatever he says. But look, it was also random. I didn't know which team you're going to be on. Much bigger. Anthony Rapp, Patrick Fisher, these huge character actors were on the bad guy team. Aben Ruby, like they were on the bad guy team, and they were rarely worked, rarely seen. So I was blessed that I got on the good guy team, because we were really a big part of the movie as opposed to the new one, which the team didn't really play as much of a role. So.
Yeah. I mean, it was Spielberg, obviously, but did you realize during that time that Twister was going to be the like cult classic film it is now?
I mean, you knew you were on a big movie, I think I sensed it. I knew it was a big movie, but I thought, oh, this is the beginning of big movies for me, blah, blah, blah. And I did that and Batman Returns, which were massive sets and big productions and things like that. Those were my biggest, and Men in Black. Those are the biggest like blockbusters I was in. But no, I didn't know until I saw the trailer, the first trailer. And it was like such a great, because it was like from the director of Speed. And and the producers behind Jurassic Park, and I was like, oh damn, and at the premiere I was like, wow, this is humongous. But when it finished, you're doing something for 6 months, and then you see it all condensed into an hour and 40 or whatever it was, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's overwhelming. It really is. And I remember leaning forward at the premiere because the whole cast was sitting there, and Helen Hunt was at the far end, and she leaned forward, and I looked at her and I go, hey, and she goes, hey, and this is done. And she goes, this was either super fun and exciting or the worst piece of shit I've ever seen. And I go, and I don't know which. And she goes, neither do I. And then, obviously it blew up, it blew up.
Thankfully it was the latter,
Yeah. I mean, and we did. But here's the funny part is when I got on set, I said to Alan, I go, oh, what's our backstory? Who should we? And he's like, how about Sean and Alan in a truck? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, dude, this is about the special effects. And it really was. It was, it was a money grab. They go, look, we've got this director speed. ILM wants to do something. They just did the dinosaurs. They want to challenge themselves to do something interesting. They want to do tornadoes. Michael Crichton had this idea. We didn't have a finished script. Like we were shooting without a finished script, So when that happens, that's not about like, oh, we love this script, we have to make it. They're like, we want to make these elements are going to make this thing awesome, And it worked. So because they had a great set writer, Jeff Nathanson, who wrote Catch Me If You Can, The Terminal. He wrote both of those. He was the on-set guy. And he was really fun and funny. So he came up with these, some weird one-liners in our nerdy, that's not a whatever, that's a space station, and me saying it. Like my thing with Alan about it said, Bill pulls in and says hi to the crew. That's all it said. And then they said, hey, we got to show these guys. They're in charge of the, where to go. So we have to do something with either maps or stop signs or, something, right? And they go, how about this one about the maps? About not following. Do you want to do this one or the one about the truck? No. It's the one about. Okay, Sean, this is your line. This is your line. Da 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 da. Set it up. Boom. Boom. Done. And then I can't stop hearing I didn't fold the maps for the rest of my life. And it was 10 minutes in an Oklahoma field. You know what I mean? It was like 20 minutes in an Oklahoma field that we shot one day back in '95. And yet, you know what I mean? And that's what I think is the strangest thing. So because we thought, oh, this isn't about us, we all just had a good time. So then, years later, talking about social media, is when I'm on TikTok, people never talk about the special effects. They talk about us and that we were a group, and because none of us thought this movie had anything to do with us. It had to do with the special effects. So letting that go, we were able to relax and have a great time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like me and Phil doing food. Me and Phil met each other every day and said, whoa, what's up, brother? What's up? That's how we greeted each other every day. So I love that we do that in the movie. I love that I have that with him, forever.
Yeah.
Because that was our thing. So we were just being kind of ourselves, which made it, which I think that's why people liked it, is because we weren't trying to do anything or prove anything. We were just having a good time because we really didn't feel the movie was about us. And now the main thing that people talk about is they loved our team and they loved our camaraderie and the fact that we were, silly and loose and, which is great.
I think that shows how real it was on set, that you can feel that when you watch it.
Yeah. When people say like, oh, what do you think of the crew in the new movie? And I go, they don't have a plot. That's not fair to compare us to them.
Yeah.
It's not really fair because they're not really part of the movie. We were a very important part of the movie to show that Jamie Gertz doesn't belong. And we weren't doing that to be mean, but we're supposed to show that this is our world. This is different. We like this stuff. You don't fit. So you can't really do that to the new movie because they didn't really have a purpose.
Yeah.
Did you like that one?
Not as much as yours.
That's what everybody says. They're like, it doesn't have the same heart. And I go, well,
it was a good film if you don't compare it. If you compare it, it's trash.
Well, ours was an action movie. Look at the body count. There's like 4 in ours, and there's like 50 in there, the new one. So that's a disaster movie. Ours was like an action movie. You know what I mean? So, So I think it's a different thing. It's unfair to judge that new team, but there was a lot of backlash for us not being in it, and they didn't make their goals that they thought they were going to make. You know, they probably will shoot another one. I think it got greenlit. I'm not really sure, but people are like, you better bring back some old people.
Yeah. I think they fell flat there. They should have absolutely had some of the original cast in it.
I've never seen a movie do a reboot that doesn't have something. Like, I was like, of course I picked the one blockbuster that they don't bring.
It's wild though, because it's right there. Helen Hunt as the main actress's daughter. Like, even
right.
Totally do it. Like, she looks like her.
Yeah.
And I thought even like, oh, she'll be their kid. This will work. And then she wasn't. And I was like, oh, interesting choice.
Yeah. I thought it was strange that they didn't have any one of us, you know. Even just, you know, even if they, you know, stop by a place or something, I would think they would have some of us. But, you know, look, it doesn't matter. I mean, you know, of course I would like to be, you know, part of passing the torch or anything like that. But everybody went back and watched. And look, when Maverick came out, Top Gun was in the top 5 rental movies. When Twisters came out, Twister was one of the top 5 movies. So I benefited anyway from the residuals, you know, because it had a big push the last couple of years because of the movie. So the new movie. So, you know, it works out. But you know, it took me, you know, you never realize these things until years later, you know, that I was like, oh, it's because we didn't care. We were just having fun, you know. We just thought, oh, the big money isn't being spent on us. It's being spent on the special effects and, you know. So I think that's why people like ours, because we were just a group of young, goofy actors with no pressure on them, you know. I think if I sat there and go, this is a huge hit, this is a big blockbuster, I bet, you know, that was the best thing about me when I was younger. I was just blissfully ignorant.
So yeah, the 90s, he worked with everybody that was big, but nobody was bigger than Jim Carrey in the 90s. And kind of what was that experience on Cable Guy, which is another movie that I absolutely love.
I think it's Jim Carrey's best comedy. Sorry.
I can see that.
I mean, well, Dumb and Dumber is really great for, you know, I don't know. It's hard. But so basically that was a crazy time because it came out that he was making $20 million on he was the first $20 million actor ever. And people went nuts. This was on a Friday, and I was hired to improvise the whole next week at that party scene. Since that came out on the Friday, the studio said, we've got to buckle down. We've got to trim the thing. And so Ben Stiller came up and said, I know you guys are all hired as improv people, but we don't have the money we're only going to shoot you in 2 days instead of 5. And you're just kind of being glorified extras. If you don't want to be a part of this glorified extra, you can tell me and you can sit in the back. Now, I had met Ben a couple of times through Drew Barrymore. And he started going down the line and he's like, I don't want to be an extra. I don't want to be an extra. No, it goes, I don't want to be seen as an extra. Put me off camera. Put me off camera. And then he only got a couple. And then he came to me at the end and he was like, and I go, it's fine. I'll be an extra. I don't care. So I'm just essentially an extra. I think when people see it, they think, oh, stuff must have gotten cut. But it did, because we were supposed to improvise and do some stuff, but because they were tightening the belt, because that article came out about Jim Carrey making $20 million, I'm just sitting there on the couch and, you know, it's not like they shot a bunch of me and I got cut out. That's all they shot of me. So I was an extra to help Ben out. But people still recognize me from that movie.
100%.
And watching him was amazing because, you know, we had a big party scene. So that's always different. You know, if it was a one-on-one scene and it was just me and him sitting in a room, when he'd come in, we probably would have chatted, or, you know what I mean? He's coming into a huge room of people. But you know, he was very mellow until it was ready to rock and he's ready to sing. And, you know, I was on the couch. He was literally 3 feet in front of me. And to see him explode was just exciting. You know, he was so powerful. So I'm thrilled I did it, because I got to learn, like, wow, he saved his energy. He wasn't Mr. Hey, hey, you know, he wasn't that guy. He saved his energy and then boom, and then let it explode when it was time. Because that song is great in the movie.
Oh my God, yeah.
So
fantastic.
Great. So great. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. There's a few other things I want to talk to you about. But Lost is my favorite show of all time. And you got to be on that show. And kind of what was your experience on it? Like, what was your experience in Hawaii?
That was a great story too, because I was a huge fan of the show. And I knew Jeremy Davies, who was Dr. Faraday from Twister. And I was watching, you know, him in his little boat as the island disappears. Then I got the phone call and I went there because I had done the shorts, and they were the year before during the writer strike. And then they called and said, you're going to be on, you know, you're going to be on Lost. And I was so thrilled. And they said, you're going to be recurring. And I was like thrilled. And then I got the script and I was like, oh my God. And then they're like, then you get an arrow through the chest. And like on page 5. And I go, wait a minute, maybe and it says, and he burns to death and dies. So you're like, I'm grateful that I'm on this show that I've been wanting to get on, but you're kind of like, but I'm not really recurring. I'm like tiny in the background on this one episode. And then, you know what I mean? So you're excited, but you're disappointed at the same time. But you kind of go, I can't get disappointed. I'm on this great show, but it wasn't, you know what I mean? I thought I was going to be like 6, 7 episodes, you know, when they tell you recurring, that just means more than one. So, but then next thing you know, like I get to set, I see Jeremy, we're talking, it's great to reunite. And then all of a sudden he gets into his Dr. Faraday and he's changing and I'm in, and then I'll go, and then I'm in the boat. So it was like 6 weeks ago, I was watching that boat and now I'm in the boat and I'm going through the television set and like, and now I'm in the show. It was so bizarre to be on the set so quickly after seeing, you know, the finale, because, you know, they start shooting them in summer for fall. So that was really crazy. And seeing the beach and seeing everybody, man, everyone was so nice. So nice. It was everyone was great. And I had to do my last scene of me yelling, you know, we need fire, whatever. They just had me do it on a loop, you know, doing it quickly, like do it more condescending, do it more whiny, do it more angry, do it more this, you know. So that was pretty intense, but I got it done. And Josh Holloway came up and says, like, that's the way you do a guest star, dude. So it was great. A lot of pressure, but for some reason I do very well under a ton of pressure. So but yeah, that was really fun. It was great.
You mentioned being a fan of Lost. Is there ever a moment where you've like gone on set and just completely geeked out?
Oh yeah, when I went to the beach for the first time, for sure. Like when I got there and I said, how much time do I have? You know, people were just getting there. And I said, I just said, can I go down and check out the beach? And they go, yeah. And I was just walking and I walked right, you know, of course it's always looks smaller, you know, it always looks smaller than it looks on TV, but I was just like, oh my God. And then, you know, it was crazy. It was crazy.
So speaking of being a fan of things, your fans, do you ever have just like crazy lines or obscure lines that just kind of throw you off and you're like, how is that what you remember when fans see you?
Yeah. There's some people that throw out lines from old movies or, you know, that they'll all be on a live and they'll say something like I did the Canadian La Femme Nikita, you know what I mean? Like, and somebody will bring that up, or you know, Lab Rats on Disney Channel, where, you know, just and I was like, wow, that's a deep cut. Like, how do you know that? You know, So yeah, they definitely kind of can surprise me with what they know. But I'm sitting there thinking they just have my IMDb up and they're just saying stuff while they're talking, because I go, do you really remember that? Come on. So
do you have?
But now I'm on the other side of the camera, you know. I don't know if you guys knew I was writing and directing and all that stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Like, you've started producing as well in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I did my movie Crust, which is on Tubi, and I don't know if you guys have checked it out yet. You should check it out. I wrote, produced, directed, and starred in it. It's a creature feature horror comedy. And it's on Amazon, Apple, Tubi. It's 98% on audience score, Rotten Tomatoes. It's got no bad reviews, and it's holding very steady through the last year. That means people are telling people, you know what I mean? And I made it to hopefully be a cult type movie, and it looks like it's heading that direction. So I'm really happy about that. And then my second movie, Swipe, just got picked up by a sales agent, and that's a much bigger budget. And we have Hana May Lee from Pitch Perfect. We have Elaine Hendricks, who was just on Dancing with the Stars, as our lead, and Ray Santiago from Ash vs. Evil Dead. We have some great people in this.
Sounds awesome.
Awesome. Well,
yeah,
Sean, where can everybody find you online?
At Sean Whalen Actor on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Awesome. And then you said Swiped is next?
Yeah, Swipe is next. You can see the trailer right now if you put in Sean Whalen. It's basically kind of a female take on Texas Chainsaw. A sister is saving her brother from these. Elaine Hendricks is the mother of the family with 3 mute daughters, a 6'5" woman with a sickle, a kind of Cenobite type young daughter. They're all mute, that just has like a stabbing dibber thing. And she's quiet and she just whistles. And then we have Hana May Lee in a blue tuxedo and a bladed dildo and wind chimes dancing around. So it's these 3 nutso sisters that men will swipe, and they'll get catfished and then taken to this farm because their father was abusive and their sister got into a sexual assault situation. So that's why they have this revenge thing. And it's really cool. It's a very cool, it's like a twist on Texas Chainsaw.
That sounds fun.
But so like Texas Chainsaw is in the desert with men going, ah, this is in a farm. It's cold. You can see everybody's breath. Like, I wanted to flip it literally, you know, the men are loud and crazy. These women are all mute. Like it's a whole different, it's just a fresh take on that. And yeah, it's really fun. I'm very proud of it.
Awesome. I'll put the link to the trailer down below, everybody. I'm going to go watch Crust. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.